Well, tubers, two bets, and of course, crazy people. When you move over to the Philippines or any other country for that matter, are you disrespecting your children? And what effect or what kind of relationship do you have with your children? Is it a close one? Is it understanding? Is it mutual respect? Or are you like many men that I meet, and even myself, who feels a distance, a chasm between their children and immediate family? And what is the cause of that? And how should you deal with it? That's what I'm going to talk about in my next little goofy video. All right, so you have now reached a certain age called retirement. And prior to this age, you did anything and everything to get to this point. You raised the family. You worked the job. It may have been a job that you loved or one that you despised. You've raised the kids, and that's going to be kind of the focal point of this video. How do the kids and how is the family affected by you picking up and moving 6,000 miles possibly away from home? Are you abandoning your family by doing so? I think that a lot of that has to do with the relationship that you have with your immediate family. And on this video, I'm going to keep it with the kids. If you have children, one of the things that I've observed over here with a number of guys that they really don't like to talk about, but once they do, they confess it to me, I can see that they feel better because they kind of got it off of their chest. It's a little bit of shame that they have been, not that they've moved over here and quote unquote abandoned their kids, because they haven't. They've just picked up, started a new lifestyle, and let's face it, with the advent of the internet and Skype and Messenger and all that kind of stuff, there's nothing to say that you can't keep in constant communication with your children and they with you. But what I have been picking up on, and I have experienced this myself firsthand, is that there has been a disengagement way before retirement age with the kids. There's some guys and women that haven't spoken to their children in 5, 10, even 15 years. There was just an amount of dissension, resentment. Maybe one's guiltier than the other. I honestly don't know. I'll speak from my own point of view, is that for what it's worth, and this is not me patting myself on the back, it's kind of a two-edged sword, in fact. I did what I felt was the best that I could do by my children. I had one biological child from my first wife who passed away, and then I adopted 2 children as infants with my second wife and raised them as my own. All 3 of them disappointed me. And that's just the way it went. I did everything under my power, where I had these big hopes and dreams for all of them, tried to guide them, tried to motivate them, tried to correct them when they were doing things that were detrimental to themselves. All 3 of them got involved with smoking weed, and then one of them moved on to full-on addiction. And I just heard from him, and I haven't heard from him in 4 or 5 years, but he wanted to contact me and let me know that he was now 1 year sober. And that's great, but that's also about the 9th or 10th time he's made that announcement to me. He's in his 40s, and he's been in rehab more than I've been in a hospital room. So those were his life choices. And I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of shame that the kids kind of went off the reservation. I had asked them to please respect me. And one thing that I've always been a foe of, and this is not to offend you that take part in this. Tattoos. I just don't like tattoos. I never have. I never will. I don't think they're attractive. I don't think they're appealing. And I think they just look blotchy. And that's my just honest, truthful opinion. If you're covered with tattoos and it makes you happy, great. It's just not something that I think is a good decision. And we can hopefully agree to disagree. Well, I asked my oldest son, please, I'll tell you what, I made a deal with all of them. I said, when you're 18 years old, you're grown men, you're now adults, you can vote, you can join the army, you can do all these things that adults can do, except drink for some reason. And rock on. You want to get yourself a tattoo? Cool. Well, two of them, the adopted ones, they went out and got tattoos on like the 18th birthday. They couldn't wait to join the pack. Lemmings heading towards the cliff. The older one, he went ahead and did it anyway. He just tried to keep it hidden. And so he outright disrespected me. And that was one of many, many moments of disrespect, disregard for my authority and my, power, I guess it is, as a parent. He was well aware, because times had changed since I was a kid, that he could call the cops on me if I even gave him a spanking. They had indoctrinated him in school that, you can do all these things, and the other kids told him, my dad cracked me, and all I had to do was call the police, and you could be in trouble. You could go to jail for disciplining your own kid. So I never got to that point with him, but he would put it in my face that you can't do that. So there's been a distance, a big chasm between me and all three of my kids. They've all kind of gone off on their own, and I will be the first to confess that the marriage that I had with my ex-wife was one of high caliber stress. She was bipolar. Seemed like I was always swimming upstream. There was never enough that I could do for her, and she was always accusing me of not doing enough for her or the kids or the house. And I don't know how much more I could do than work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to put all those nice things on the table. And I used to ask her, I say, you like the roof over your head? You like the car that you're driving? You like the food that you're eating? You like the clothes that you're wearing? Where's the problem? What have I done wrong here? And yet it was never quite good enough. So, that being said, when I packed up and I got on the plane 8 years ago, I just left it all behind. I said, you know what? You guys just fend for yourselves. I did what I could do, and I was an enabler. Whenever they got into trouble, I would go down and try to fix it. I'd show up in court, or I'd plead, leniency, and don't put him in jail. He's got separation anxiety, whatever kind of. I was like a little mini Matlock in court, and that was hindsight being 2020. That was the worst thing that I could have done by my kids when they got in trouble. I should have let them just go to prison, or jail, I should say, for 2 or 3 days, cool their heels in there, see how they liked it, and then come home. Very, very hard with today's laws, siding with the children as far as what you're allowed to do as far as discipline. The schools would not, when I was in school, if I acted up, and I did, I got either a swat on the ass with a paddle up in the vice principal's office, or I was sent to detention, where I had to sit there for an extra hour and wasn't allowed to make a peep. And trust me, I acted up when I was a kid. Nothing serious, but I would violate some sort of dress code or something, and I'd get in my fair share of trouble. And I was disciplined for it. And you know what? By the time I graduated school, I was no longer getting in trouble, because in the earlier years when I was cutting up, they disciplined me. And those little swats on the ass were not fun. You had to do everything you could to stop from crying, because you didn't want to, you wanted to be a tough guy. And I'd go stumbling out of that vice principal's office going, man, I'm not going to do that again. And I learned my lesson. So, am I advocating hitting kids? No. But a swat on the butt never did any long-term physical damage to me. It simply drove home a point that you cannot get away with putting gum in some girl's hair. That was not acceptable behavior. And like I said, by the time senior year came around, I never had any of those issues. My children, on the other hand, if they got caught doing something like sleeping in class, showing up, being rude, talking back to the teacher, there was no discipline. You know what they would do? They would send them home. They would suspend them. And they'd intentionally do it because they knew they had a 3-day vacation at the house. And I'd be gone. I had to go to work. I couldn't sit there and watch them. My wife, she'd kind of be in, kind of be out because she had a job and other activities. And they just had run of the place. And that, when you're dealing with someone that's using drugs, alcohol, all the above, having people over when they're not supposed to, just acting out and knowing that there's no consequences was a toxic stew. So, have I been disengaged from my kids? Yeah. And I used to feel really guilty about it. And now it's like, you know what? If you go biblical, which I put a lot of faith in, no pun intended, Bible says, honor thy mother and thy father. And it used to be back in the day, somewhere in the Bible, they said when the kid was acting up, usually a teenager, you would cast him out of the village. Just get rid of it. If they're not showing you due respect, then there needs to be that consequence. I look back on that and I say, wow, there's a lot of wisdom there. So, that's sort of the kid part of this little analogy that I'm doing here on the YouTube about separating from your family. Now, let's go back to a much more nice, normal situation. One that's not so filled with dysfunction and craziness and alcoholism, but one where there's a family dynamic and you get along fine with your kids, but you find them distancing you while you're still trying to stay in touch with them. And I remember a story that I had with my father. My father told me a little tale. My father this month turned 100 years old. God bless him, right? And 40 years ago, I asked my dad, when he was 60 and I was 30, I asked him a question. I said, why is it, man? I said, I'm a little, I'm really impressed by this, but why is it that all your friends are 40 years old or less, a good 20 years younger than you? Why is that? And my dad's reply was this, at the age of 60 or in his 60s, 40 years ago. He said, I don't want to hang out with a bunch of those old farts. He says, do you know what they do, Paul? And at the time, I didn't, because I was only in my 30s. He says, all they do is bitch and moan about how they feel or what hurts, what aches. He says, Christ, he says, if you talk to them for more than 5 minutes, you'd swear they were 1 foot in the grave already. And they're complaining about the wife, and they're complaining about, the politics. And they're complaining about, bottom line is, they're just complain. And he says, by the time you get done talking to them, you're just physically exhausted, and all you can think of is getting away from them because they're making you feel horrible, and there's nothing you can do to help them. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, when I'm hanging out with 30-year-olds like you, or 40-year-olds, they're still optimistic. They're still happy. They're joyous. They want to get up and bust a move. And that's what my dad wanted to do. He wanted to live life. He wanted to go out and go fishing. He wanted to go golfing. He wanted to play gin rummy. He wanted to work hard, and then he wanted to play hard. And by playing hard, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't use, but he just liked social activities. And he liked it with young guys that he could cut up with and break balls and make fun of and make jokes. And he is one of the most beloved people that I know. I know that sounds biased because he's my father, but I'll tell you flat out, anyone and everyone that met my dad was just felt endeared towards him because he was always upbeat. He was always self-depreciating. He was always funny. He always had a story, or he actually got a big kick if you were a funny person or an interesting person or even a quirky person. And if you were quirky and he let you let him kind of break your balls about that and get along with him, he would love you and you would love him back. And so he has been like that since the day I've known him. So why would kids possibly distance themselves from you? Well, what kind of elder have you become? Are you one that sits about and bemoans the fact that you wake up and your lower back hurts, or you just had a surgery and the doctor, took this, that, and the other, and you've got all these blood pressure and different types of medications that you're taking, and all you really do is give everybody a physical count on how many pills you're taking, how many aches and pains you have, what's going wrong, how much you dislike the current politician, how things are going to hell in a handbasket in America, how things are going to hell in a handbasket in your neighborhood, the problem you're having with the HOA. In other words, the complaint department is open when you are in the presence of others, and you are the complaint department. Everything is an issue. Everything is negative. Everything is crappy. And then let's flip it around to the guys that were like my father. Guys like my age, 60, 70 years old. I got news for you. We all have the same aches, the same pains. We're possibly on the same medications. We've possibly had the surgery that maybe went well or didn't go so well. We may have a gimp now. We may have a bum leg, bum ankle. We can't get around as well. It's hard to breathe. Name it. Name a malady, and we're probably got it. However, when you're talking to a person that just accepts that and focuses on their true gifts that they can give you as an elder person, what do elderly people possess? They possess, number one thing that you can't buy, and that's wisdom. And you can talk to, or I can speak with an older person of my age or even older, and I can have a great conversation because they share their wisdom from life experience with me. They are free to give, not advice, but sort of analogies, and they're great storytellers in many cases. They can reflect back on World War II, and they don't bring it up as some sort of horrible thing. They might have a really funny story about, what some other guy did. My dad's got some funny stories from the war. I won't repeat them because I promised to keep them private, but he was kind of like me when I was back as a kid getting the swats. He was acting up a little bit himself. And so these are guys that you sit down and man, you just look forward to hanging with them for an hour or two. They've got all these funny stories, memories, things about women, things about that, and it's always got this weird little positive spin to it. And they tell you they're how they've failed and what they learned from it and how it happened. And as they look back on it, they just tell you how funny it was that they managed to F up so bad. and yet still come out of it smelling like a rose somehow. These are people that have that law of attraction, I would call it. There's a gentleman here that is going to kind of pinpoint the opposite. There's a gentleman out here that I know, my friends know, and when we see him coming, we all go, oh no, it's him. Because he is, guess what? A born-again complainer. No matter what you say to this man, he shits on it. I don't know how else to put it. If you're talking about the Philippines, he'll just complain about the usual suspects, the traffic, the trikes, the women, the brownouts, the shortages, the out of stocks. And it's like, what are you doing here? Well, why don't you go back to America? Oh, we'll go back to America? Well, they got all the woke agenda, and they got this, and they got that. And can you believe this one said this, and this one said that? Going into the politics. Something you have no control over. All you can kind of do is sit back and watch and see what happens. And this is a dude that really you just can't wait to get away from. And unfortunately, fortunately, those guys are far outnumbered by the guys that are positive. Guys that I know personally out here, I get together with a lot of them intentionally because I know I'm going to walk away feeling good. I'm going to have a little spring in my step. We're going to sit and break each other's balls for a while. We're going to tell some stories. We're going to try to share some wisdom with one another, and we're going to try to keep it positive and upbeat. And what it is we're not even trying to. We just do it naturally. And then we got Yohu coming in and who wants to piss on everybody's parade. So, the children, what's this all got to do? I say that it's 50-50. I say that the children have an opportunity that if they want to stay in touch with you, if they want to tell you that they appreciate you, they want to tell you that they love you and that they miss you, but they support you, then there you go. And if you've got the opposite, if you got the kids, and I've had guys being very sad over the fact that their kids have ghosted them. They just refuse to speak to them for whatever reason. Some are given a guilt trip because they've moved over to the Philippines and are looking at younger women. And, who are they to tell you what to do in your golden years? This is your turn. You worked for it. You earned it. And if it makes you happy, if you got a good relationship with a good kid, then that kid should be happy for your happiness. Because I don't know about you, but all I ever really wanted for any of my kids was for them to be happy. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video.